How many guitars does a guitar player need? It's always just one more. Now, this is an age-old discussion, and every now and then I've got to hear it from the wife, just like all of my friends out there that are married or have a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. At some point, the wife is gonna go, why do you have all these guitars, and why do we have to have this? And I just had this discussion just the other day. Wife started in on me, and look, we've had to move. And when I originally, the first house we kind of bought together, it had a huge music room. But the problem was, it was also the back entrance to the house, the main way that you would come in from your car. So if a case of water came into the house, put it in my room. And so it would just, whatever boxes or whatever were on their way in or out of the house would always end up in my music room. But man, I had that music room. I was producing albums out of it. And, I had tons of room and tons of space to have this gear. And so I still had a lot of my gear from the road. When you're on the road and you get like a road gig, and it's a pretty high profile gig, man, companies are going to come around and they're going to offer you equipment. They're going to offer you guitars either at a discount, or sometimes they just outright give you guitars. And so, you amass a lot of gear, and it takes, look, I wasn't just, playing on the road. In some cases I was playing on the road and playing on the albums. And anybody knows, when you're in the studio playing guitar, you need at least 4 or 5 guitars just for a session. And depending on what type of music it is, you're going to need, some different things. And that's just giving you the basics. That's not including like, man, I need a 12 string, or I need a baritone, or I need a Rickenbacker, things that you don't use on an everyday basis. But when you're recording, an album, you need variety of tones. And so you do need a Les Paul. You do need a Telecaster. You do need a Stratocaster. And, you need a few good acoustics, right? Because you never know when you're going to get pulled in the acoustic room. I did a session one time, and they flew us to Mexico. And this was good money, but it was like an independent artist. And they built this, $1 million studio, multi-million-dollar studio in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico. And, I could only bring like a couple guitars, but I think they had a couple guitars there, and they had amps already there. So I just needed to bring, 2 or 3 guitars and a pedal board. And then they had additional stuff there, like acoustic guitars. They had a bunch of acoustics. But I can remember getting pulled and go, okay, we want you to play acoustic on this. And I am not an acoustic player. Now, I can do some nice little strums, and I can do some basic finger picking, and, I can make it sound good. But man, they put me in that acoustic room, and it was an LA type session where we do things over and over and over again. And I would be in there for like playing the most simple patterns, but having to play them over and over again. And I didn't even know what they were. I don't even know what they were trying to go for. This album never even came out. I mean, we had top-notch players on there. We had Shane Theriot, was the other guitar player. We had Joe Wooten on keyboards, and Dorico Watson on drums, and John Billings on bass. And it was a stellar band. But man, that playing acoustic, that's a whole nother thing. And it's why I tell people I don't play acoustic guitar, because frankly, I can't afford to have enough acoustic guitars to be able to cover, a session or whatever, and So that would be another rabbit hole. You'd need a Martin, and you'd need a Gibson, and you'd need a 12 string, and you'd need this, and you'd need that. And oh, I need a mandolin in case they ask me to play a mandolin part. So, you do need a lot of stuff when you're active like that. Now, I am retired from the road, and for now, retired from live playing. I may occasionally do a pop-up gig here. I'm just kind of waiting for, what opportunities come. And I have downsized my, my gear, gradually over the years. I got rid of my 412 cabs. I got rid of my high-powered heads. Before I left town, I sold my amp rack. I sold my road cases, all of them except 3 of my guitar road cases. I still have those. And I've kind of got my road guitars in them. And it's almost like their final resting place. May they rest in peace. But, I've got still a lot of guitars. And, it's like, if I had a, birthday just a couple weeks ago, and, we didn't really have the budget for a guitar. I do just love, I love the feel of a guitar in my hands. And if it's got a unique sound, and it does something that, something else that I have doesn't do, then, I want it. And I look at guitars, online and think, oh, that's a really cool guitar. And, so, I've got a lot of guitars. I've got a couple amps in here that you see in some of my videos. And I've got some pedal boards and some extra pedals and stuff like that. But a lot less gear than I used to have. And I've sold a lot of guitars too. I've sold a lot of guitars to make this trip. But it's like I told my wife, I said, I can't sell all my guitars. We had about 2 months notice, 2 or 3 months notice to get down here. And I'm like, I can't sell all my guitars in 2 or 3 months. The market right now is down, and that's just not a possibility. So, I'm like, look, I can't sell 30 guitars in 2 months. And frankly, I don't want to sell them all. And I told her, I said, look, this YouTube channel, this is what I'm doing now. This is what I'm doing. And I said, this would be an awful boring channel if I only had 2 or 3 guitars. It would be completely boring, because I said, look, I can pull out a guitar out of my closet and go, hey, check this out, and make a whole video about it. And I have yet to even touch that. But I will dig through my collection and show you guys a few things. But I'm not Joe Bonamassa. I didn't make Bonamassa money. And, I'm just a, everyday kind of player, just like, all the people that watch my channel. And I think that's why we relate so much. I'm not a collector of vintage guitars. Frankly, they're too much work. They cost too much. And I like a nice shiny new guitar. I'm just one of those weird old guys that likes new guitars. And I do notice with some of the newer guitars from some companies, I'll notice if I think the quality's gone down from what it used to be, if the tuners aren't as good as they used to be and things like that. So I do notice, there are some years of guitars, and I'm not opposed to a used guitar. Now that's a whole nother story. You can get some great deals on the used market. Just peruse the Guitar Center used section, and man, every now and then you can snatch a really good deal. But we're guitar players. In some ways, we're collectors. I like to think now that I try to pick something. If I'm gonna buy something, even when I bought the Squire debut that I demoed on my channel, that is exclusively at Amazon. So I would recommend a Squire debut if you don't have any money, or you want to get a guitar for one of your kids or your niece or nephew, for $119. It's pretty tough to beat, and it's got the Squire name on it, and that is a good guitar. So I bought that Squire debut, and I bought the red one because I thought, well, it's the only kind of unique color out of these. They got the flat black, and that's kind of common, and they got a flat tobacco sunburst. And tobacco sunburst is a cool color, but man, there's so many tobacco sunburst strats. So if I'm gonna buy a strat or something, I'm gonna try to find some limited edition color or some unique thing or something that I think looks cool, and that would be what I would buy. And so if I was gonna buy a new guitar, I would kind of try to find something like that. I'm not gonna buy a Ventura tobacco sunburst. That's just kind of boring, and there's gonna be hundreds and hundreds of them out there. But how many guitars do we need? Well, in reality now, it seems like I need less and less as I get older, and the opportunities are less. But I still know that in this business, the phone can ring, situations can come up. And, just like about a year or 2 years ago, I got a call to do a Stones tribute act, just a one-off, just a fill-in show for them, but they needed a guitar player. And then all of a sudden I'm scrambling through my collection going, okay, I have a Telecaster that had a humbucker in the neck, but somebody put a Tele neck pickup in it. So I took that to my guitar guy and said, hey, put the humbucker back in this thing, make it look stock. So I had the Keith, I had the Keith Tele. And then I'm like, okay, then I've got, what else did I bring on that gig? I took an SG 3 pickup custom. It was an Epiphone, but I took that as like the backup to the backup to the backup. And let's see, what else? I had whatever Teles I had a Lake Placid blue Relic Tele copy that had a Fender, on the logo. And that was one of the guitars I took. And then I forget what else I took, but I was looking at my guitars going, man, I had to do all these guitar switches because, the Stones have standard tuning stuff, and they've got the Keith tune stuff and the 5-string stuff and all this. And let me tell you something, changing a capo, very quickly, and making sure the guitar is in tune, that's a whole different ballgame. Because if you're just playing a guitar without a capo and then you just slap the capo on it, realistically, it's probably not perfectly in tune. So the best thing to do would be have each guitar already with the capo on and already tuned up before the show begins, so you can just grab it and be ready to go. So I had to have like 4 or 5 guitars on that gig that were guitars that I wouldn't normally gig with. I don't normally gig with Telecasters, but all of a sudden I'm in a position where, if I want to go make this money, I need to pull the guitars out of my collection that I can use on this gig, and they'd be the right tool for the job. And the same thing would be happening if my phone rang tomorrow. I'd be going, okay, what would I use on this gig, and start looking at what I have and going, what can I use that works for this style of music? So, how many guitars does a guitar player need? It always seems like it is one more, right? And to the chagrin of our wives and our girlfriends and our families and all that, I tell my wife, I said, if something were to happen to me and I wasn't around anymore, be thankful that you'll be able to take these guitars, take them down, even if you took them down to Guitar Center or took them, to the local music shop or consigned them somewhere, you're going to get a good chunk of change out of this. And it might be just enough money, to keep you straight for a little while till, you can get things resolved. So, as a musician, having extra guitars was always my backup plan. When things would go awry and, gigs would drop and money would, disappear, it'd be like, okay, what do I have here that I don't need, right away? And that's where you go through the guitar collection and you decide which one has to go. But you know what? Then that just creates the problem of, oh, well, now I need to get something to replace the one that's gone. It's a never-ending cycle.